Y'all. My name is Adriana. It is so great to be here today. I have the honor of moderating this conversation with two amazing Gen Z activists and organizers. So I will pass it to them to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tiana Day. I'm 19 years old, and I'm the founder of Youth Advocates for Change. It's a 501c3 founded here in the Bay Area to amplify youth voices through intersectional social justice issues through creative arts and talents and passions of the young people in the Bay Area.
Hi, everyone. My name is Siobhan Heinz Foster. I'm a native of San Francisco. I do a lot of activism around education, racial justice, and also have been dabbling a little bit on supporting students with college transitioning.
Awesome. And personal introduction. I'm Adriana. I am 17 years old. I am the chair of the San Francisco Youth Mission, but I've also done a lot of advocacy in housing, civic engagement, and also just education equity within the United States. But we are here today to talk more, and I'm really excited to learn more about the work that y'all have been doing. So we can start with just like a quick conversation starter. What is it like, just organizing as a young person in San Francisco? And how does your identity play into that, if it does?
Yeah, I think for me, the way I got started with advocacy was definitely something I didn't really prepare for. So I went to Lowell High School, and in that, there was a lot of mistreatment of students of color. With that came a lot of controversial topics around like how students can be treated through like a merit-based admission system, how students can be treated, through peer-to-peer contact. And in that, with a lot of the issues that arose at Lowell, I kind of felt like a lot of passion to make a lot of changes at my school, because Lowell is definitely a powerhouse in San Francisco. But because it is such a powerhouse in San Francisco, oftentimes a lot of the issues that happen on the campus is neglected, repeatedly. So I sprung into action, advocating on the school board, advocating with the Black Student Union. So in that, I found myself in my school community, but I think I also found myself as like a Black activist. Oftentimes, San Francisco is known for its liberal politics. San Francisco is known as a safe haven. But for me, I did find a lot of support and comfort in my community, but I often was met with a lot of backlash based on, my identity.
Yeah, I'm very kind of similar. I grew up in San Ramon, which is about 40 minutes from here. Both my parents are San Francisco natives, though. And I started organizing really here in San Francisco over my community because, very similar to you, I feel like school was really the worst place for me. I felt like that was the last place I felt like I belonged. I grew up where no one looked like me. I was the only Black woman in my entire school. I was told that my hair was really poofy by my teachers. I was constantly being told I look better with straight hair, and I'm prettier because I would be prettier if I wore the same clothes that everyone else did. And so that led to me really hating myself, like a true, pure hatred for who I am and what my identity was, the circumstances I was born with. And I would journal a lot. And my earliest memories really are writing down at the end of every single night, I wish that I was white. I wish I had blonde hair and blue eyes. I wish I looked like my friends and my peers, because maybe I would fit in a little better and I would feel better about myself. And that is really hard to share now that I'm coming kind of on the end of things, and I'm really truly love who I'm becoming and love who I am and love the people who I'm surrounded by, but that's not how it started. And although sometimes it feels so hard to talk about that kind of stuff, I feel like I have to always start by acknowledging that that's where I started and that's where my passion roots from, is never feeling like being me was enough to walk into a room and be confident. So graduating high school was really my turning point, where when I realized like I don't have to be anyone anymore. Like I'm in the real world and none of you guys matter anymore. I don't owe anyone apologies. And for the record, you're racist, you said some crazy things and I remember it, and everyone deserves to hear that. And that's kind of how my Twitter went. I started calling people out, by name. And for the record, that was over 75 students, pictures, videos, screenshots of students from my high school that I grew up with, kindergarten to graduation, being blatantly racist after posting black screens saying that they support Black Lives Matter. Yeah.
That's crazy because low-key, before I really got started with like the school board and everything, I was doing the same thing in SF.
Yeah.
So like when she was telling that, I was like, yeah, my social media was popping off. Like people were calling my mom like, Siobhan's putting out crazy stuff, like get her to stop it. So I was like, I can relate.
Yeah. And it's teachers and it's admin and it's the people that you would think are there to support and love you. I had some of my favorite teachers calling my parents talking about, Tiana should really delete this thread. It's really harmful to the community. I had my house egged. I got doxxed. My home address was out on social media. Kids were getting taken out of school. Like someone got kicked out of UC Irvine. And so people were pissed. And teachers were emailing me. I had already graduated. Remind you, that's why I did this. I can't get in trouble. I don't owe you anything at all. So posting this was so liberating. It was like I was finally taking off all these shows. Like, oh, Tiana's giving me the N-word pass. I did never do that. I never did that. But you'll use me as the only Black girl as any kind of tokenization to get your way and to be cool and to fit into pop culture. Like that's not who I am and that's not what I stand for. And I hate that I let people use my name like that, because I used it as like, that was what felt safe to me. Because if I walked out of my house and I didn't kind of stay to myself, it would be dangerous. It would be dangerous for me to talk about this kind of stuff in my own community where I'm supposed to feel safe and I'm supposed to feel like, you know, I love my neighbors. Like that's why I come out here, because it feels a lot better than growing up in San Ramon, Danville, Alamo area. If you know, you know. Like it was scary. And so that's that.
Yeah, I think like a big thing that Tiana pointed out was like with the doxing, with the mistreatment, like a lot of that is pointed towards us because we're Black. Like my time on the school board definitely opened my eyes to how catty like SF politics really are, and how like people definitely have like no couth. Like I was getting targeted. People were putting my face on gorillas, you know, death threats. And I was like a minor at the time, like 17.
Oh, 17 too.
Yeah,
Yep.
right? So it's kind of like, it's I guess like a lot of people fail to realize, being like a young Black activist, it takes a lot to do what we do. You know, you're constantly putting yourself on the line to have your voice heard. And oftentimes, you know, even though you're putting yourself on the line and doing this and risking your safety, you can still not be heard, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've heard a lot about what y'all have done because of your identities and because of a lot of the hardships that y'all have had to deal with. I mean, do you want to speak to more? I know I was talking to Vani a little bit about her scholarship and to Tiana about the wonderful nonprofit that y'all have started. So, I mean, yeah.
All right. So the background behind starting this organization was really realizing that I always had the passion in me for social justice, period. I can walk into a room and I can recognize what is wrong, but am I going to take action about it? That was my issue. And really, I realized that there's a lack of space that are student led, first of all, and don't have adults dictating what you're doing. Because I think in some ways, some older people can be really afraid of having those hard conversations, but this generation is not afraid to do that. Like we will go out there and we will say what we need to say because it's important and we deserve to be heard, and we are going to make sure that happens. And so for me, starting an organization that is solely youth-based, I mean, there's no one older than 23 in our organization, and they're making the rules. You know, I wanted to pay a place where young people could be like, I want to do this event, I want to do it this way, I need this much money, and I'm like, let's make it happen. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was 17 when I started it. I had kind of just got thrown into activism. I did this Twitter thread, and then I was like, I'm going to lead a protest. I'm going to go to the Golden Gate Bridge. It sounds like a great idea. I mean, San Francisco, it's a lot better than here. My mom's like, you didn't grow up in San Francisco, Tiana. I said, Mom, it doesn't matter if I'm there by myself. I have 2 people, you and Dad, or if the 300 people show up. I really think that this is my calling. I'm going to do it tomorrow. She's like, okay. Like my dad's like posting on Facebook, like, please come to Tiana's protest, like support her. And the second I get there, there are like thousands of people all over the place, over 50,000 people there to march in solidarity to Black Lives Matter, with the message that the people united will not be divided. That is the point of why I do what I do, is because there's this thing called intersectionality. And when you bring people together from different marginalized groups, that's when you have the most power and control. So I wanted to have a space that was youth activated, really like youth centered, with the idea that we can come together with all of these different backgrounds, all of these different passions, but with a common goal to make shit happen. Like really, that was it. Is like, let's take action, let's not take sides, and let's be able to support each other in ways that we've been failed by our communities, by other people. And the power is in our hands, and we deserve that space. So what's the best way for young people to do that? Is through art and creativity. So we do journalism, we have podcasts, we have campaigns, films. We're working on a short film right now, and we attack all kinds of different social issues that we are passionate about, and we can continue to control our narrative, because that's the most important thing when it comes to activism, because people will try to use your name, and they will try to use your story, and they will try to twist your words and say that you support this and you don't support that. And especially as a young person, being 17 when we both started, like, people think it's cute and they want to use that as the center. Oh, you're 17, you're so cute, you're so passionate, like, sure, I'll throw some money at you. I'm like, no, like, do you hear what I'm saying? And that's been like the biggest issue to why I was like, I'm done joining these organizations, it's time to start my own.
Yeah. Personally for me, I guess like the best way to describe myself is like a freelance activist. Like, okay, for me, I feel like I'm the person that a lot of people can count on, when they need help or need direction on something, or if I feel really passionate about an issue, like, I'll mobilize. But me personally, I'm not affiliated with the organization or anything, but I have sat on like a lot of boards with like Gen Up, SFUSD, et cetera, et cetera. But me personally, I just like never took the time to really develop, I guess, my activism into organization, because I feel like, I don't know how I feel. I haven't really thought about it a lot, but and that's okay. But I definitely have been active in my community for a long time. And even before I was on the Board of Education, I did do a lot of work at my high school, but I didn't get as much credit as people who were doing the same work as me, who were different skin tones. So for me, I really got my flowers when I joined the school board, when I was put on this like large platform to be heard across the city. And from then I kind of like took that platform to kind of like launch myself outside of that, outside of like my high school. So I feel like me personally, I've kind of been able to like blossom into like the activist I want to be outside of like my time on the school board, outside of my time at Lowell, because I have like so many resources and I have like a name in my community. I'm developing my own name. I already had a name before that. I was Yvonne's daughter because my mom is a business owner. But, now I'm Siobhan, the activist.
Yeah. And put it in quotes.
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of work around education equity, whether it be like serving with Gen Up, working on a lot of education policy, on top of like supporting juniors and seniors getting started on their college apps, and also like kickstarting my own scholarship. And I just wanted to kickstart that personally for me because I saw how hard it was for my friends to like find access to scholarships in San Francisco. Even though there's a ton, a lot of times, it's not guaranteed that you get the money. So I wanted to start a scholarship for students who are passionate about serving their communities, passionate about leadership. So I started it this year, launched it in February. And it was like $2,000. And I was able to award this amazing kid who raised his GPA up from a 1.0 to a 4.0, wow, left gang violence, and is going to UC Berkeley. So it was just like super cool to see like how, community dollars, like we raised the money in my mom's shop, could go towards a student who has definitely took the time out to like develop themselves. So from that, being wherever people need me, whether it be like speaking engagements and stuff like that, but I've definitely like taken off in college, getting active on my HBCU at Hampton University, getting involved with that, and also like branching into like different sorts of activism on that campus as well.
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear about. I guess I'm really curious to hear more about what it's like organizing in San Francisco. I know you just spoke about, organizing the Black Lives Matter protests, and Vonnie, I know you've organized many, many actions. We just did one with March for Our Lives and gun violence a few weeks ago. But what is that experience like in a city that we've seen has often gatekept youth from a lot of politics and decision making? Does that impact your organizing at all?
Personally, for me, I think for me personally, I see like a bit of jealousy comes for me when I see like other activists get their flowers, because me personally, San Francisco youth, like San Francisco activists have been doing like what all other activists do across the country, like before it was even like trendy or before it was even acknowledged. So I feel like oftentimes as like San Francisco youth activists, we don't get our flowers because it's like expected here. So I think like that's kind of like the main thing I would focus on.
I 100% agree with that. And I think that's probably why, as someone as an outsider came to San Francisco, is because I see there's so much more engagement here and there's such a better sense of community here. And that is something that's acceptable here. Like this activism, I don't even want to call it activism though, because it's like, we were really born into this life, like I didn't get to choose my skin color. I didn't get to choose where I grew up. I didn't get to choose anything. Like this is the cards I'm dealt with. And you can't really be an activist if that's what you have to do in order to survive and in order to live day to day. So I think San Francisco is beautiful in that way, that is available. And there's a lot of people who realize that. And that's why I choose to come here when I want to do bigger events or I want a turnout, because the community does show up. And that's something really beautiful that I'm grateful I have within driving distance to get that. But it's not necessarily something that I got to grow up with or feel celebrated. So coming out here and joining things like you were talking about when you guys organized the gun violence rally, like that was an event that I will drive to be able to participate because I see a sense of community and I'm inspired here. Like I started organizing because I saw young organizers in San Francisco, in Oakland, in these spaces that are more honestly POC populated. Like that doesn't happen in spaces where you don't see people that look like us. So for me to go to spaces like that where it feels more accepted and it feels more comfortable for me, where I can feel like I deserve to be in this space instead of making this space and be standing alone by myself and feeling very isolated, which I already felt for so long. Like that's why I choose to come here and organize and of course support, the activists that are already doing the work here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think going back to what y'all were talking about earlier, starting your own initiatives, projects, organizations, is that something that you would recommend other youth do? And if so, like, what is your biggest piece of advice?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend youth to like start their own initiatives, projects, and stuff like that, because coming down the line, your idea may be like greater than anyone else's, and coming down the line, no one else may have that idea. So I feel like in the spur of the moment, when you have that idea, definitely try your hardest, use your resources to make it happen. Because like if you talk to me like as a ninth grader, I wouldn't think about putting out like a $2,000 scholarship. Like, where would I get the money? Who would I give it to? How would like the word get around? But like, I made it happen.
Yeah, totally second that. My biggest regret is not getting involved earlier. And although I was 17 when I started, I think that the youth have this incredible gift to be able to see what's wrong and address it, but we're afraid to take action because we don't have the support from our communities or our families or whatever it is. It's focus on school, focus on this, focus on that, go get a job so you can be prepared and build a resume. Like, honestly, at the end of the day, I say F all of that. Like, do what your heart desires, like follow your passion. And I wish that I could go back and tell 14-year-old Tiana, like, stop thinking that you need to work 2 jobs because you see your traumatized father have to work 5 jobs in order to make a living for your family. Like, stop trying to do everything that everyone else is doing and just follow your heart, because this has always been a passion of mine. And I always knew I would start something, but I would say, oh, I'm going to wait till I turn 18, or I'm going to wait till I'm graduated high school or graduated college, or, I have some accolades behind me. And when I finally got to that point where I was like, I have all of this passion, it literally bursted out of me. Like, everyone's like, there's no way Tiana is talking right now about something that is controversial. Like, she's not, that was not me. To the outside public, that was me at home ranting to my mom and my sisters, but that wasn't something that I was saying because I was afraid of what people were going to think about me. So being able to kind of like be unleashed from high school, and I was like, I'm free, like, let's go, I can do whatever I want now. I look back at it and I think so many young people have that same passion and have that same fire in them, but they're afraid. And to all young people, I would say stop being afraid and just start getting involved, because like you said, you never know, your idea could blow up, or it doesn't even necessarily have to blow up. I think if you're impacting one person, then you're doing your job and you're doing the work. And for me, starting this organization was really an accident, because someone, I think I was talking to someone, I don't know, about the demonstration that I'd organized. They're saying, how did you organize it? Wow, this is so incredible. And I said, I got 3 cases of water bottles and I posted something on social media. It's not hard. Like, I literally just had the passion for it and just did it. There was no organizing. It was 18 hours. It was really 18 hours from when I had the idea to do it to when it happened. And you just need to act. Like, that's really all it is. It's just acting on what your emotions are telling you to do and what your passion is calling you to do. And they said, what's your next move? I said, I'm going to start a nonprofit. And they said, what are you going to name it? Like, wow, like, this is so cool. I've never heard. And I'm going to post about it on Instagram later. You guys can check it out. Like, this is my Instagram account. I got that call. Like, I just said, I'm going to start a nonprofit. I'm 17. I can't even like legally sign my name on anything. I'm not even 18. I need my parents' permission. But luckily I had a good support system at home, and my parents were like, let's find a way to do it. And I think young people need to lean on those people that they feel who are supportive of them, and graciously, like, we both have very supportive families who have helped our journey. But yeah, really like believing in yourself and believing that you can take that action, I think, is the first step. But acting on it is the hardest thing. Like, you can have the idea, but if you don't act on it immediately, it's like the next day you're like, one day, not today. I said the day is today.
Today is the day. Well, speaking of support systems, how do you all think adults, community members, families can better support young people in their journey towards social justice or activism at organizing?
Yeah. For me, I think Tiana had hit a point on like a lot of youth have the ideas, but a lot of them aren't supported. And I think that's what I saw a lot in my high school, a school that focused a lot on like, like Tiana said, focus on academics, focus on your resume, focus on getting a job, to build yourself up. um it was hard to do activism there because it was like pulling teeth, like, you guys care, and I know you guys care a lot, but like you guys have to get out there, and you guys have to like, not listen to what your parents say, and actually like, make your voice heard. So I think what people can do to support youth is, you know support them, support their ideas, but also like challenge them. A lot of times we just need like a sounding board. We just need people to kind of like push our minds to think outside the box, and not just on this like one lane of like, college is the only option. My idea can only go so far. It can only go to social media. It's bigger than that.
I would say listen first and don't question too much. I think the biggest thing, I have this issue as well, is I and others, when I was giving this idea, would say, well, how are you going to do that? And what is, like, what is your logistics? Sometimes you don't have the answer. A lot of times I don't have the answer. We'll be planning events and people will be like, okay, so where are we going to get this? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. And I think that's the great thing that young people have, is like, we don't know, but we're going to figure it out, and watch us figure it out and let us figure it out. Like, allow us to fail, allow us to have those hard moments, and allow us to get over it and push ourselves, because those are the moments, like those resilient moments is what's going to make, you feel like your passion is worth the fight. And the biggest thing I'm so grateful for is my mom is a great listener, but my dad is a big, I have a great idea and you should do my idea. And so my mom will be like, yeah, shush, let her talk. And my dad will be like, no, but you should do this, and have you talk to this person, and then and I'm like, Dad, I love you so much, but sometimes I just wish you would listen to me and you would hear what I'm saying, because sometimes, although it's exciting for, whether it's a parent or it's an aunt or it's an uncle, to hear a young person have a wonderful idea, sometimes the comments about what they should and shouldn't be doing don't always help, and sometimes they hinder, and then you get in your head and you're thinking, okay, well, like, maybe they don't support because they want me to do it this way. But for young people, I think the most important thing is like staying true to yourself, because you're still discovering yourself every single day. I'm like, who am I going to be today? What personality am I going to have today? Like, we have the ability to do that. Everyone has the ability to do that. But the best thing I think people can do, besides donate and like give, money to fundraise for these younger people who are trying to make change in the community, is just to listen to them and support them and ask them what they need before asking the questions, so it gives you, that instant gratification of like, oh, I know what's going on. Like, let them figure it out and be there as a support. I think the best mentors I've ever had have been like, well, don't necessarily ask me what you should do. What do you want to do? And let me guide you using my knowledge to get you to success, or whatever your outcome is, whatever you think you want to go to, head the direction you want to head towards. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think another thing that Tiana pointed out was like, let youth grow, because a lot of times, parents are afraid of what might happen, afraid if like the idea is too big. But, being a part of activism, being a part of, student leadership, it takes a lot to like learn and grow during this. So I think it'll all benefit us in the end.
That's really cool. I guess let's have one more question before we open it up to Q&A. Both of y'all mentioned using social media and different forms of outreach to reach either other youth or larger audiences. Do y'all want to speak a little bit more to the role of social media and maybe why that makes or helps make Gen Z so powerful?
Yeah, social media is my way to organize. I mean, I don't know anything else. Like, old school activists will have their ways and I love to learn from them. But like right now, the innovation is in technology, and this generation, I think, is so powerful because we have access to technology in our fingertips. We can reach thousands, millions of people all across the world, you know, with a click of a button. And people don't realize how much power that has, like social media, although it's can be a horrible thing, it can also be a great thing. And for me, I love being able to use it as a platform in order to reach more people and educate and also unlearn, because there's a lot of things in education, our public education system, that is built off like genuinely like white supremacy, and unlearning a lot of the things that you learn in school is probably the hardest part. So using social media and using like trusted people who are educating the community is really, really important. I think a lot of people miss that fact. But in terms of organizing over social media, I've seen it as really the best way to outreach for young people. We've done all of pretty much the first 2 years of the organization, we were all online. So Zoom calls were pretty much all we were doing. We didn't have an office until earlier this year, which we're really grateful for, but we are 250 students strong across the nation, 6 different states. And these are all students who are making change in their communities because we're sending emails back and forth and like on Zoom, you know, and like I just put out a Google form application, like who wants to join us? Like there's not a lot of rules, but you know, you make your own rules, you ask questions and I help with the resources that I have and we can share amongst ourselves. But really it's a community, and building that community over technology and a social media platform is actually really incredible. And it's a very helpful thing for, I would say, young people. I don't think I would be here right now if it wasn't for, you know, posting an Instagram post that, you know, made me feel like, okay, like maybe a few people will show up. And I had no idea that so many people seen my post, but you know, there's the power of reposting, and that's how a lot of people found out about it and have attended. And from there, I was leading 5 protests after that, and then I was going to Sacramento and leading protests, and then I was starting this organization, and then, you know, more and more people were seeing what we were doing and wanted to join and wanted to donate and wanted to get involved. And without social media, none of that would have been possible. So I owe it, honestly, what I'm doing and the passion that I found and the inspiration from the other young people that I've seen on social media to this age of technology that Gen Z has access to.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the main way I kind of like made myself known was through like social media, whether it be like posting hot topics about issues or, you know, posting about email templates to basically go against the enabling of sexual violence in public schools. I feel like social media has definitely been an asset to me, especially when it came to like the biggest parts of like my career, when it came to like my scholarship, when it came to like my time on the school board, and definitely when it comes to like me transitioning into college student. So I definitely agree with what Tiana said. Like, you know, a lot of my career has been based on like this age of technology. And, you know, technology is an asset that, you know, older people tend to neglect. And I feel like that's what sets youth apart. We're able to like use technology, even if it's something like totally new and fresh. We make it, you know, a trend. We make it on topic, and, you know, it takes off.
Yeah, it was great to hear from both of y'all. But I know that the audience has burning questions. So I will open it up to see if there are any questions from the audience for either Siobhan or Tiana. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not the balance.
yeah, deep question. Because I guess like that question really hits me because like a lot of like my advocacy like is rooted in education, even in college. So like for the school board, you know, I was on this big position working with people who have the power to basically change anything in our district at the stroke of a pen. So I guess like the way I was able to learn to like work with and also like against the system was definitely through like resolution writing, and also like connecting to people who have more resources, may have more knowledge than me, to find out ways how, I can make change, that's most effective. Maybe the way that I get to like what I want may not be like a protest, but maybe it's like, meeting with different people, hearing from people from different sides, and I think that definitely has played a role in how I do advocacy at school, because my school is over 100 years old and definitely like pretty conservative, because it's in Virginia and it's also like been around for so long, that my school values a lot of like tradition. So learning from what I took from the school board, I've been able to, transform my advocacy into like working with and against the system, to kind of like switch my school's culture towards, cultivating around students who are, the majority, which is Gen Z.
Yeah, I love that. Very similar to you. I've also organized with the school board after I thought I got away from high school, I went right back. I ended up taking a gap year right out of high school, and choosing to like really commit myself for the whole next year to my work. And it ended up being the best decision ever. I think I had a lot of trauma and a lot of negative energy against my school, and thinking like they will never work with me and they will never support me. So why will I give you my 2 cents? And the second I started like, talking and speaking up, a lot of people on the school board were reaching out to me like, hey, okay, like I see what you're doing. Clearly you're very upset, but let's have a conversation. And I never saw it that way. I let my anger kind of get a hold of me and I acted on it. And I had to realize that you can actually find allies within your community, because there are certain people that do want to help. And that is the best thing about it, but you have to find those people. So what balance for me looks like when organizing with something with, a school board for say, looks like finding my allies. And luckily we had someone who was running for, she was running as a trustee, and I had the idea of, for her campaign when she was running, to actually interview the students, a bunch of alumni who had really bad experiences, and to talk about why these experiences shaped who we are today and what things we wish could have changed. And so they had me on it. They had one of the students who was a part of the LGBTQ plus community. And they had someone who started a club about disability, like sitting with students with disabilities. It was called Circle of Friends. And there was a student who does a lot of work in mental health advocacy. And we all talked about like some of our darkest times were in high school, because these outlets were things that we had to create and had to balance within school and, our own personal passions. And really coming out of high school, feeling that freeing feeling of like, oh, I'm not held back and I'm not put in this box anymore because I'm no longer in this environment. So being able to have this conversation and knowing like a lot of people who are important that can make changes are watching this, and I can freely say exactly what I want, was like such a great feeling, and made me build a way better relationship with them, to where I can go into the SRVUSD now at any time and be like, hey, can I schedule a conversation with the superintendent because we need to talk about this? And that translated me into being the head coach of my high school cheer and stunt team. So I was actually working for the school district and with the school district right out of high school, because I knew that that was a place that I felt very isolated, and being able to take over that job and be so close to actually now working with them instead of against them was very empowering. So to answer the question, I think finding your allies is really, really important. And knowing that the people that you talk to may not always have the best intentions, but finding the ones that do, and you can talk to about things that maybe you feel like you can't talk to other people, like that's where you come in, and that's where you are actually comfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I also want to expand slightly in which that there are so many ways in which you work against the system that really curates community support. So one example of this is how a few weeks ago, Siobhan and I and a few other youth activists worked to hold this gun violence protest. And Tiana, you were there as well. You spoke in front of City Hall. And I think that aspect is very important to increase community support, as I said, that works against the system. But at the same time, we also have to take action within the system. So I've been working with like the state assembly office to introduce several pieces of legislation in the state legislature that would provide safe storage laws, close a few gun access loopholes. So I just think it's important to realize that you have to use both aspects of it to create the systemic change, but also that cultural shift of the social change you want to see.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we have a community question?
I do.
Mhm.
And like, first of all, I want I actually know and she was coloring.
Maybe Siobhan.
I'm so glad you know, I know it's temporary. My question is, well, first of all, I'm proud, but my question is, I know that you did so much in trying to accomplish what you did while you were supporting San Francisco Board of Education. And since you left, you know, they have their back a lot more is happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure. Like,
It's like
paying attention to everything. I think you are. That was your
I have no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just say, like, for this, first of all, how do you feel about what's currently happening? If people second, I
Oh yeah, deep, 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 deep. The f- the funny thing is, since I left the school board, I've actually like spoken at public comment maybe like 3 times, and like 3 times like from my computer in my dorm, and like another time like getting off of work, walking from City Hall, and like going to 555. Like, what are you guys doing? I feel like the school board is a big controversial topic, but I feel like the school board is definitely like a big part of San Francisco. You know, education is a big part of San Francisco. And in the past few years, education has definitely taken a spotlight in San Francisco. Maybe it hasn't been for the right reasons, but it definitely has been an ongoing spotlight on San Francisco politics, and on San Francisco education. My advice, damn. No, yeah, literally, because I feel like the school board I sat on, you know, though people may have many different opinions, I feel like, you know, given, you know, their mistakes, you know, depending on how people view them, the school board I sat on definitely cared about students. You know, even though some people didn't agree with all the ways they were trying to make radical change, I feel like for me as a student, as a Black student, a lot of the work they did was like very impactful. Yes, we were going through a budget deficit. Yes, we were going through COVID, but I feel like they tackled a lot of issues that, you know, have gone on for a very long time. And because we were so caught up with our lives, you know, outside of COVID, we never took the time to really sit down and like dissect them. So I feel like for that reason, they were seen as like so controversial, you know, so radical, you know, they're trying to change everything. But I feel like people fail to recognize like what they were doing kind of like created a culture shift on starting a conversation, you know? So advice for this new school board. I feel like me personally, you know, a lot of appointments happen in San Francisco. You know, people get appointed to commissions, people get appointed to district seats. I feel like who appoints you should not be your puppet. You know, you were put in that position because of the work you do. You were put in that position because of, you know, your view, your ideal, you as a person. So let's step outside of who appointed you and let's step into who you are. um and the reason I say this is I took time out of my day. I was with my best friend since 6th grade. We both went to Lowell together, both went through the shitstorm and came out. And we both ironically took the time out of our day to go back downtown to 555 Franklin and speak at public comment. And what struck me is that majority of the commissioners who were appointed by the mayor took majority of the time to speak about how, you know, they want to prioritize all students, you know, students to have access to all quality education, but they failed to realize that that is the call to action of many people who, you know, wanted to see that change. And to me, I feel like, you know, if I'm talking about, let's say, clean streets, and I'm like, you know, I want to see clean streets all over San Francisco. You know, I've been impacted by dirty streets. And when it's time to vote, I vote in favor of dirty streets. It's kind of like, what was the whole point of the monologue about clean streets? You obviously don't support clean streets if you're voting for dirty streets. So that's kind of, you know, let's challenge, you know, the status quo. Let's challenge, you know, basically who appoints you. You're not, you know, you don't owe them anything, you know, you're your own person, you're your own commissioner. So let's start, you know, if that's your belief, that's fine. But let's start to challenge ideas, you know? Yeah.
And I just want to say this. And this is something that normally I wouldn't say. What I'm about to say is beautiful young of color. In your life, you're going to come across a lot of different things, a lot of different people that will try to take your light away.
Yeah.
And make you not passionate about what you're doing. I encourage you to stay on this path of excellence, of work about something, of being so passionate about something that you would come here and speak to all of us at the age that you are. Please stay on this path. We need you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So much for doing this. So proud. Like I said, this one coloring is coloring.
Crayons.
Coloring book. A little pink backpack.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you. Siobhan, I hope I get to see a photo of that after this. Coloring Siobhan. Okay. But I want to acknowledge that it is 8:33 and this event is supposed to wrap up at 8:30 if I'm correct. Okay. You're like, no. We've had such a great time getting to know y'all both, Siobhan and Tiana. I will pass